Ukraine, the live stream video, and reading this alert that we've got.
We want to get to that video, Matthew, so if you'll stand by. The person we want to go to for that, because it's closer to this, thank you, Matthew, closer to the situation is our Frederick Pleitgen. Frederick, thank you for joining us this evening. Frederick, listen, Matthew said partially what we have here. Through live stream, troops atop a column of military vehicles entering Ukraine from a border crossing with Belarus. It was taken in Sinkivka, Ukraine, crossing the border to Belarus. Column was seen entering Ukraine around 6:48 this morning. You have video, you have the information on this. Take us through it, please. Frederick? Okay, apparently we don't have Frederick, but let me just read to you what we have here, and I'll read it again as we're looking at these images. What you're looking at on your screen, this is through live stream. If you can put the video up. Are you there, Frederick?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Frederick. So we have these images up there through live stream.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Video. Take us through what we're seeing.
So it's live stream video. What you can see on that live stream video, Don, is you can see several tanks and armored vehicles cross the border, through a large amount of time, for at least a minute or a minute and a half, of those vehicles going across the border. And then we have that information that is that very border crossing between Ukraine and Belarus, and that these troops are now coming in from Belarus. And it really is remarkable, because I was actually with those very troops just last week when they were conducting large-scale exercises together with Russian forces inside Belarus. And the possibility of an invasion from Belarus was always something that the U.S. had warned about. And I asked that very question, Don, to the Belarusian strongman Alexander Lukashenko, just to give you an idea of some of the lies and the misinformation that have been spread ahead of this. And he laughed at me. He said, look, do you really believe that we are going to invade Ukraine? And obviously now, only about a week, a little more later, we're seeing that apparently is exactly what's going on. It's still unclear at this point in time whether these are Russian and Belarusian forces. It could very well be the case, because these two militaries work very closely with one another, and they've been practicing with one another for a large amount of time. And just to give you an idea, Don, about the possible size of the force that we're talking about, there were about 30,000 just Russian troops inside Belarus, allegedly, for those drills. And then, of course, you also have the entire Belarusian army as well. So certainly, this is an extremely dangerous development that we're looking at, and certainly broadens also the assault that is going on against Ukraine at this point in time, because, of course, these are two very formidable forces. Belarus, of course, a very small country, but nevertheless with a very powerful military that now seem to be crossing the border, as we can see there on that video, into Ukraine. And as Matthew was pointing out, the fastest way for an invasion force to get to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev is exactly from Belarus. There's a pretty new road that actually the Ukrainians built to try and increase traffic, to try and increase trade with Belarus when the relations were still better. It really is a very quick way to get to the capital of Kiev. So this is definitely a very worrying development that we're seeing here. And of course, on top of that, we have to keep in mind that there is also this large Russian force that's on Russian territory, where there are obviously a lot of people who believe, as Jim Sciutto was pointing out, that some of these airstrikes that we've been seeing, the missile strikes, where we've heard them launch from here, from this very location in Belgorod, that those are there to soften up the possible the battlefield for a possible ground invasion that could come. And you know, one of the things that we saw in the past couple of days as we've been roaming around the border here between Ukraine and Russia is we saw forces that certainly looked like Russian special forces, and those in many cases would be the first to go into an area to then set the stage for a larger invasion of ground forces, of some of the many armored forces that we've also seen here. So certainly some worrying developments, and the CCTV video definitely remarkable to see that apparently there are, on a large scale now, foreign forces invading Ukraine.
Oh, Frederick, I want you to respond to this, because we're getting information that Russian President Vladimir Putin and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko spoke by phone Thursday. Belarusian state news agency Belta reported the morning Russia launched military strikes against Ukraine. At about 5 a.m. today, a telephone conversation took place between the presidents of Belarus and Russia during which Vladimir Putin informed his Belarusian counterpart about the situation on the border with Ukraine and in Donbass. Delta cited the Belarusian presidential press service as saying. So this sort of bolsters what you were saying about those troops and whether they're Belarusian and what is exactly going on. The two men spoke not long ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it certainly bolsters that. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that both Putin and Lukashenko, they are very, very close to one another.